A terrible story from the hotel. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. You won't believe the story I have for you today. Grab some popcorn, dim the lights, and let's dive into this wild ride together. So, a few weeks ago, I had an experience that still gives me chills every time I think about it. It all happened at this hotel that seemed totally normal at first. But trust me, things got weird real quick. Arrival at the hotel. Alright, so here's how it all started. I was heading out on this spontaneous weekend getaway. Work's been crazy, and I just needed a break. I found this quaint little hotel online that was nestled in the countryside. Looked super peaceful in the photos. The drive there was actually pretty nice. Rolling hills, a beautiful sunset, the whole picturesque deal. But as I got closer, the GPS signal started getting spotty. Classic, right? The road turned from pavement to gravel, and the trees seemed to close in around me. Finally, I pulled up to the hotel. It was this grand old building, probably from the early 1900s. Kind of majestic, but had that "I'm possibly haunted" vibe. The exterior was covered in ivy, and there was this thick mist settling in. It was like stepping into a gothic novel. Checking in, I walked into the lobby, and immediately, I felt like I'd traveled back in time. There was vintage furniture, chandeliers that flickered ever so slightly, and a massive grandfather clock ticking loudly. The receptionist greeted me with a smile, friendly enough, but there was something off. She had this distant look in her eyes. "Welcome," she said. "We've been expecting you." She handed me an old-fashioned key, not a keycard, mind you, an actual key with a heavy brass tag that said room 303. She mentioned that dinner would be served promptly at 8 p.m. and that I should be careful not to roam the halls too late. Odd, but I shrugged it off. Exploring the room, I took this vintage elevator with one of those metal gates up to the third floor. The hallways were lined with old paintings whose eyes seemed to follow me as I walked by. Creepy, right? I finally got to my room at the end of the corridor. I unlocked the door, and the room was actually kind of charming. Antique furniture, a canopy bed, and a large window overlooking the dense forest. But there was this strange smell, sort of like old books mixed with a hint of something metallic. As I started unpacking, I noticed that the lights would flicker every now and then, and at one point, the bedside lamp just turned off completely. Great, I thought, guess I'm in for a rustic experience. Unsettling discoveries. Night rolled around, and after dinner, which deserves its own video, trust me, I went back to my room to get some rest. Around midnight, I was jolted awake by the sound of whispers outside my door. At first, I thought maybe other guests were chatting late at night, but when I looked through the peephole, the hallway was empty. I shrugged it off as my imagination and crawled back into bed. Just as I was drifting off, the room phone rang. Ring, ring. I answered, but there was only static on the other end. Then, a whisper. Leave. Chills. Straight up chills down my spine. I hung up quickly, trying to rationalize it. Maybe it was a prank, or a wrong number. The next morning, I decided to explore a bit. I took a stroll around the hotel grounds, and that's when I met an elderly woman sitting on a bench. She looked at me with these piercing eyes and said, "Beware the shadows in this place." Then she just got up and walked away before I could respond. Seeking answers, feeling thoroughly spooked, I went back inside and decided to do a little digging. There had to be some logical explanation, right? I found a door that led to the lower levels of the hotel, probably the basement. And, naturally, I thought it was a good idea to go exploring. Because why not? As I descended the stairs, the air grew colder. The basement was a maze of old furniture covered in sheets, dimly lit by flickering bulbs. Then, I stumbled upon a room filled with old newspaper clippings and photographs. The headlines read things like, "Mysterious Disappearances at Local Hotel," and "Unsolved Mysteries of Room 303. My heart started pounding. This couldn't be real, could it? I snapped photos of the articles with my phone. As I turned to leave, I heard footsteps behind me, but no one was there. I'd had enough. Time to get some answers. I approached one of the longtime employees, a man named Thomas. He hesitated but eventually told me that the hotel had a history of guests reporting strange phenomena, especially those who stayed in room 303. The terrifying climax. That night, I decided to stay one last time. Not my smartest move, I know. I wanted to see if anything else would happen. Around 2 a.m., I awoke to the sound of my room door creaking open. My heart was in my throat. A shadowy figure stood at the foot of my bed. I couldn't make out any features, but I felt this intense dread. It started moving toward me. In a panic, I jumped out of bed and tried to turn on the lights. Nothing. The switches didn't work. I grabbed my phone to use the flashlight, but the battery, which was full earlier, was now at 1% before it shut off. The figure reached out a hand, and I felt this icy cold grip on my arm. That was it. Fight or flight kicked in, and I chose flight. I shoved past whatever it was and bolted out of the room. The hallway seemed longer than before, stretching endlessly. The exit signs were flickering, and doors along the corridor were slamming shut one after another behind me. The escape. I raced to the elevator and hit the button repeatedly, but it wasn't coming. So, I dashed to the stairwell. As I ran down the stairs, I could hear footsteps echoing behind me, matching my pace. I didn't dare look back. When I reached the lobby, it was completely empty. No staff, no guests, nothing. The front doors were locked. I pounded on them, yelling for help, but no one answered. Then, out of nowhere, Thomas appeared. He whispered, "This way," and pointed to a side door. I didn't think twice. I followed him, and we burst through the door into the cold night air. As soon as we were outside, the noises stopped. The hotel stood silently behind us, as if nothing had happened. I turned to thank Thomas, but he was gone. Disappeared into thin air. Aftermath. I didn't stop running until I reached my car. I sped away, not caring about speed limits or directions, just wanting to get as far from that place as possible. When I finally got home, exhausted and shaken, I noticed bruises on my arm where the figure had grabbed me. They were in the shape of long fingers. Yeah, super creepy. I spent the next few days researching the hotel, trying to make sense of it all. Turns out, the hotel closed down decades ago after a series of unexplained incidents. The strangest part, there was no record of any staff named Thomas. In fact, Thomas was the name of a guest who disappeared in the 1950s. Was it all a hallucination? A trick? I honestly don't know. Part of me thinks maybe I was dreaming, but the bruises are still there as a chilling reminder. Conclusion. So, what did I learn from this whole ordeal? Well, for starters, maybe don't book hotels that are too remote or have zero cell service. But on a serious note, I think there's so much about this world that we don't understand. If you ever find yourself in a situation where your gut is telling you something's off, trust it. I sure wish I had. Have any of you experienced something similar? Or do you think there's a logical explanation for all this? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to smash that like button if you enjoyed this story, and hit subscribe if you want to join me on more of these crazy adventures. Thanks for sticking around till the end. Stay safe out there, and I'll catch you in the next one.